Everyone, we're back again with the Chief Delegates, minus Randall. Hopefully he'll join us soon. And we're so happy to be with you again. And so let us kick it off. Perhaps everyone can make a little intro. How you guys doing today?
Super.
Yeah, it's another fun day. Another fun day.
Aaron, you should have a hat on. The fact that you have no hats on right now is just disorienting to me.
I got the headphone hat thing.
Okay, true. Yeah, I guess we got that.
True.
John, how you feeling?
Good. Keen to code.
John, you need to put some art on your wall.
Yeah, I know. I gotta.
John woke up just to be with us today. So thank you, John.
Yeah.
Good morning,
and
John.
Our first topic is going to be the mission statement. We have been trying to form a mission statement. What are we trying to do as a group of chief delegates? What are our goals? What should we be striving for? Aaron, what do you think?
I was just going to ask, is this our mission statement as sitting chief delegates, or is this mission statement sort of proposed for Eden?
Good question. I mean, I think it's for the whole of Eden. I think it's pretty unclear what Eden on EOS is for, even though it doesn't seem like it should be unclear.
Because I thought we were somewhat benching the mission statement for the global thing until we get more of the bylaws and everything from Dan, as that kind of influences it a bit.
Does the bylaws change our mission? I mean, I think that our mission has been fairly clear since the start, but this topic came up as we've been trying to craft the mission statement in that document and in our internal conversations, which is kind of why I put it on our agenda to really talk about. I think that there are a lot of people that join Eden on EOS for Eden as opposed to for EOS. And I think that really separating the how and why of what this collective of people is for is important. And you can even see it in the suggestions that we got for the mission statement early on. And so the whole reason I wanted to add this to the agenda was just to talk about that. And we sort of talked about it in Telegram, but with all of us being in the same call, and I do hope that Randall does get a chance, joins us soon, so that way he can be involved in that conversation. But there's so many with Eden existing in multiple forms. We have the idea of Eden, we have EdenOS, which is kind of the system that does it, and then we have Eden on EOS, which for people who are just coming into this, it's kind of confusing because they're all just Eden. Are you going to say something, or are you just?
What do you think, Lovejoy?
I have a bunch of thoughts, but they're not going to come out in any particular order.
All right.
But yeah, I think Eden on EOS exists to, create a united body of people that can act on behalf of the interests of the EOS network. I think we exist to serve our own membership as well. I think that's a crucial component. I don't know if I'm not looking at the screen, so
I'm opening it right now.
These notes exist somewhere. I think we need to keep it really simple. We need to lift up the membership. We need to unite around common efforts to strengthen EOS. I don't know what else there is to it. Education for members, perhaps.
My thoughts are, when I was reading the back and forth with Aaron and Randall of whether it should be about EOS or it should be about Eden, I was thinking the whole time, why does it have to be either or?
Right.
Some people are clearly fascinated with the political playoff structure and everything else that's involved with more equal animals in Eden. And others want to specifically see the EOS network and token grow. So, but why can it not be both is my question.
Right.
There's nothing to say that we can't focus on improving Eden, but it has to be for EOS, which
Why?
just because that's, I mean,
where
there's
the
a
funding
reason we're
comes from.
called, that's when it boils down to it, that's when it comes from. The vast majority of our funding comes from EOS to improve EOS. EOS isn't paying us to improve Eden specifically.
If it wasn't EOS, Jesse, what else would it be?
It is EOS. So we get paid in EOS tokens. So logically, we should do things to grow the EOS network. However, I think that some things, I think when we think of Eden, let's say, okay, we're doing things for Eden. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not for EOS.
Right.
Could be.
Especially now in the beginning, when the only implementation of Eden is on EOS.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just Eden on EOS. That's the only thing. And so if, for example, if like some of my bees are translating the More Equal Animals book, but that's Dan Larimer, and Dan Larimer is EOS. So I think you can make the argument that anything for Eden is also for EOS.
I mean, I think you could,
I would Eden is just like the way that we're using it is a framework of, you know, sort of governance kind of thing. It's a tool, and as we progress in our campaign for EOS, obviously we're going to find kinks and things that aren't right with Eden, or that can use improvement, and we can provide that, you know, feedback. But yeah, our primary focus should be EOS, because otherwise we're just sitting around using Eden for the sake of Eden, which doesn't make much sense. Like, we got to put it into the real world, you know, environments, you know, doing real things and putting it under real stress.
yeah, I think it's, go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say that's why I focused on the what this is for and the how we achieve it. And then in those conversations, I was trying to express the idea that what we are trying to achieve is for EOS. How we achieve it is by using Eden. Like, we all participated in the Eden process, and it was for EOS. Just like we are also going to, another how is the website that we're talking about. We're not doing it because we just want to build websites. We're doing it because Eden on EOS needs this to support EOS. Just like we're using Eden to support EOS. So I'm just trying to refocus.
I think these are all great points, and I don't think that there's like a hard, clear answer in any particular direction. I mean, I think both things are true. You know, we need to strengthen Eden to serve EOS. You know, you can put EOS, serving EOS as the primary motivator. It's like we're building a car that needs to travel through a particular kind of terrain, and the car is Eden, and the terrain is blockchain and EOS specifically. And we need to keep adjusting the controls and the levers on the vehicle as we go to navigate the terrain as we encounter obstacles and stuff. So, but Eden also has intrinsic value. It's not just like a thing that's purely 100% in service to EOS. Like Eden has value in and of itself. The membership has value in and of themselves. So, you know, there's a little, I think you can look at it both ways. I don't know that we need
Does it though, Lovejoy? Eden, is Eden a complete, like, I think you just said that Eden is or can be wholly separate from EOS.
I just said it has intrinsic value.
Any community does.
Yeah. Okay. But are you saying it's separate? It can be separate from EOS.
It could be, but it's not. In this
Not
case.
right now. I mean, but
Right.
aren't we looking at things like Chuck wanting to run it through like small community groups, like that is Eden being run completely outside of EOS.
Well, except it's using EOS. Like he's very much about
Well,
using
yeah.
EOS as the implementation of.
Right. So it's not, Aaron.
So what? It's not what?
It's not outside of EOS.
It could be though. There's nothing, and you should.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm pretty sure himself has said that you could run this system without a blockchain. The blockchain
fully.
surely does remove all of the trust elements and automates it really well. Like it is an ideal system to run this in.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, like, if you trust somebody to run the process, it could be done offline without computers. Like Chris, were you looking at educational materials that could describe that too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's-
Hold on. So let's say someone at their school, they're doing it with cards. It's
Yeah.
not on a blockchain. But where did they find out about the process? From Eden on EOS.
Well,
So
no,
not
they came
necessarily.
from more equal animals. That's where we found it. That's where Eden on EOS found it.
Right. More equal animals, which is
a
Dan,
book.
which is EOS.
Dan is
No.
not EOS.
Dan is not EOS.
I think if someone looked up Dan,
They're not
It would-
related.
find themselves at EOS.
Yeah.
Maybe a few other places.
Yeah, like that. Dan has heavy interest, but again, Eden is not EOS. Like, they're completely, separate.
The Wright brothers are not airplanes, but they have strong relationship to airplanes.
And if you look up Wright brothers, you'll probably find airplanes.
Yeah.
But it's like a square is a rectangle, or no, a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not always a square.
I think
Mezcal.
this
It's
is the
tequila, but
analogy.
tequila is not mezcal.
I think the analogy for me is altcoins versus Bitcoin. So you take any altcoin, EOS or whatever, and it's not Bitcoin. It's totally not Bitcoin. However, any altcoin is inherently connected to Bitcoin.
No.
And I think that is the same with Eden and EOS
How's it connected?
because they're both cryptos.
They're of a kind. They're in a category, but other than that,
Right.
they don't need to be
They're
connected.
in a category.
Okay, why are we having this conversation? I mean,
The
like,
conversation is because I don't think that these are our mission. These
Right,
all
so-
focus too heavily on Eden and not heavily enough on EOS. So tab 2 is things that I've come up with just brainstorming and reading other mission statements that really do focus on what Eden on EOS, what our mission is. And these are probably not good, but they express ideas that could potentially be crafted into something that's good. Like short, sweet, it doesn't explain the how, but it explains the what. The what being the people, the consensus, and EOS. Like every one of them has EOS in it. None of them say Eden because Eden is a how we do what we do. Our mission isn't to, like, our mission is EOS at this point.
Can you share
you're just
the
saying
document?
that refining
Yes.
the process is secondary to the goal of what we're trying to achieve, and that's
Correct.
fine. I tend to agree. I think we should consider supporting initiatives that want to focus on Eden as part of our broader efforts. It's like, if Eden was software and we were using that software to run our efforts, like it might behoove us to make sure that the software is improving so that we can improve our efforts to benefit EOS.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
disagree. To draw an analogy to that, like this website that we're building, we're talking about using this Jamstack idea, which is like maybe there's a piece of software that we use to make it so that we can publish our ideas on a website easier. And if we can improve that engine to build websites along the way to fit our purposes, that kind of fits within our mandate to serve EOS. But that doesn't mean that website engine is part of our mission. It's just we can improve and make things better along the way to
Yep.
still achieve our mission. I'm going to share this in Telegram real quick so you guys.
Yeah, that's a very open source perspective. Like we're using an
That's
open
my
source.
life.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great. I'm totally into it. I think I was talking to Chuck today too, and I asked him what he Chuck McDonald, and I asked him what he thought, EOS should focus on, like why people should come to EOS, and he thought very much that EOS should align itself with open source development.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a pretty spot on observation. There's tons of open source communities out there of all different persuasions, and we have a killer open source blockchain stack that could, support all sorts of different projects and all sorts of different domains, and
yeah,
treating all of this kind of like an open source.
I would pick mission idea number 1 out of the 5 personally.
yeah. Why do you like that one? I'm just curious.
It just speaks to me in terms of how I feel the delegates and the chief delegates role is at the core. We need leadership, and I think that's really our biggest value. Like, yeah, we're working on our own projects, but I think that we need a group of people to help like think things through. I think that's probably the most value we're bringing the EOS community.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree. And I think right now we're kind of operating as number 2. Like we're all acting individually in our current endeavors. We're trying to figure out ways to come together. But right now, the best we can do without a way to really form a team at the top to lead things is that as individuals, we're all kind of leading by example, finding our way through the dark. But number 1 might be the aspirational goals we do have, like when we're talking about ways to come together to build a website or have an organization or hire people from within the community. Like that's kind of that guidance and leadership I think that number 1 does have. And that's not to say we can't pick anything or refine these further.
I would probably add provide guidance, leadership, and funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one part I think was kind of missing, because we are using the Eden process to allocate recipients of funds explicitly. Like that's basically the only thing we've really been explicitly given.
Yeah. That's very true.
Does that, hang on, no, like we can't, like we're not always going to get funds, or we can't guarantee that we're always going to get funds coming through. One day we might not be getting money from ENF or whatever.
There's always membership fees, but I mean, that's not quite as enabling.
I was going to have a treasury, and if I have to go busk on the side of the street, I'll do that.
You play guitar? Because that's something you could actually do.
Oh yeah, guitar, concertina. I can juggle.
Okay.
Whatever it takes. I'll juggle chestahedrons in Manhattan. I don't care. Anyway, yeah, I think this is a really good set of mission ideas. I do feel like Eden needs to be in there somewhere, although I totally get your point, Aaron. It's as it being like a secondary thing. Like, what would be the relationship of?
That's the how, Lovejoy. This is just the what.
Yeah, I know, but this is the mission ideas, and I get that it's the what, but it's like, along the way, provide, benefit or improvements to the Eden infrastructure.
And maybe that's part of either the vision or maybe the vision. Like our vision is that we're going to accomplish this through Eden, or fractal democracy, if we don't even want to, like I I don't know, from the research I was doing on mission statements, because it's been years since I've really tried to write one. It focused a lot on, like the what and keeping it concise.
Yeah.
You don't want to get too deep into necessarily the how, for lack of a better word. And maybe in the future, maybe there's 20 of these Edens, some of them not even on EOS, and maybe some of them are running local communities, some of them are running other online communities. I don't know, the possibilities are kind of endless, but none of their mission statements are also going to have Eden in their mission. But I'll bet you, in the same way that we think, like, if we can improve this process, we will, because it'll make us more successful in our mission, they'll probably feel the same way and won't be mentioning the process in itself. And that's kind of where our community, being the first community and kind of being the beta testers of all of this, we got to really like separate the process and the purpose. Maybe those are two other good words.
Well, it's kind of interesting. There's some analogy here between, why can I not escape full screen? There we go. I was trapped. I'm going to pull something up. Someone else say something intelligent while I'm.
Do you want me to stop screen sharing so you can?
No, I escaped.
Oh, okay.
I
meant, I wasn't sure if you were going to share something with us.
I can if you want to, but I can just read them out loud too. I just thought, as like an analogy to what we're doing, go ahead and switch. I'll screen share for a second.
All right. I like analogies. I'm really bad at them sometimes, but they're fun always.
Well, just, this might even confuse us even more, but I think at the end of the day, it'll make us stronger. And I love to talk about co-ops. So the cooperative world, there's cooperatives in agriculture, there's cooperatives in grocery, there's cooperatives in manufacturing, there's cooperatives in pretty much every sector. In fact, the cooperative structure is just everywhere. It's huge. I don't have statistics on the top of my head. But there are 6 cooperative principles that all these different cooperatives abide by, essentially. And I'm not suggesting these for us necessarily, but these are cooperative principles. And they're not all voluntary and open membership. Like, there are member only cooperatives, but like generally speaking. Number 1, voluntary and open membership. 2, democratic member control. 3, member economic participation. 4, autonomy and independence. 5, education, training, and information. 6, cooperation among cooperatives. And 7, concern for community. So 7, actually. And we can read into these more, but my point in bringing this up is just that what we're doing is designed to serve EOS, but the structure that we're using is kind of its own creature in a way. And like, we have the value, like, we're using the values of Eden to bring to bear on in the way that we organize with respect to EOS. So I was starting to question whether we even should be looking at a mission statement explicitly as like the only way we can organize ourselves with respect to EOS and Eden. Because like, just by, as an analogy, cooperatives have these core principles, and yet they work in every conceivable sector in the world. They don't explicitly sit down and think, oh, we need to improve cooperatives. I mean, at least they don't anymore. And yet they all have the same kind of backbone infrastructure.
And
I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. And I think that maybe a list like that would be good for Eden, or some sort of core principles that help Eden groups to function. Because when I look at that list, I see it as like, those are ways to successfully create a cooperative for whatever purpose. And each cooperative that forms with these principles does have their own individual kind of mission, which was the mission statement kind of trying to address. But if those did exist, like that one that talked about democratic stuff could literally be about Eden. Like these Eden structures use fractal democracy for the same type of verbiage that outline describes. And then those all felt like hows, like principles of the how.
Yeah.
But none of them were the what.
Right.
Because the what is determined by the individual cooperative.
Right. Maybe part of the problem is our name, because we call ourselves Eden on EOS, and maybe we should just be the EOS whatever society, and we use fractal democracy principles, like in the same way that we reference that a co-op references cooperative principles, but we are not, we're not like, we're not both Eden and EOS in a sense. We're an Eden structure, or an Eden in structure, but our goal is, like, I don't know. I guess in the cooperative analogy, they do say like grocery co-op, or.
Yeah, another reason why the name isn't so great, Eden on EOS, is because there's going to be other Edens on EOS.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about this a couple of meetings ago, like, oh, we're the Genesis Eden on EOS.
Yeah. I wrote a forum post about this a while ago. Just the confusion. I mean, I'm sure we've seen it roughly in some areas where people that aren't involved don't understand what Eden on EOS is even. Or they don't know the difference between the system, the idea, and us, which is somebody that takes the system and the ideas and applies it to a thing. Like it requires a really deep level of knowledge to be able to distinguish between those individual concepts.
Yeah, it's like EOSIO and EOS.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Another terrible naming problem.
Yeah.
We're basically a governance DAO that's operating within a blockchain DAO.
Yeah.
That has a different kind of governance structure. So we're attempting to create a membership that can work effectively to benefit the EOS ecosystem by using fractal democracy to organize ourselves.
And by using a number of other things as well. Like we have a lot of tools at our disposal, and we all ran, well, I shouldn't say we all, a couple of us ran on projects that were beneficial to EOS. Like that's why we elevated through the ranks, is because people agreed. They're like, that would be good for EOS. Like so, and it's a hard line to draw, especially when we're the first ones and we're trying to figure it out along the way. Like we're the ones experiencing these problems first.
Yeah.
It's just recognizing them.
Space monkeys.
Yep. Yeah. They didn't give us any helmets.
Poor monkeys.
Yeah, right.
Here's a helmet, get in a rocket, go to space.
Sorry, we didn't know there was no oxygen.
Helmet wasn't very helpful, was it?
I think maybe one of the more practical concerns is this idea that we should be working on something that directly benefits EOS, and those projects that aren't perhaps should pivot, I think is the suggestion, right?
I think by setting the mission, we can kind of look at it and make sure that what we are doing in some way relates to that mission. And like I can't specifically point at anything that anybody's doing and say that doesn't benefit EOS, but that doesn't mean the mission still shouldn't be clear. It's just that really is the mission statement. It is to define the broadest of goals that everything else should kind of fit under. And if that's just kind of my opinion on that topic, and if you guys think the mission needs to describe something else, I'm open to changing my opinion.
Cool. So it's a good start. The 6 suggested mission statements, and I think let's think about it and continue our discussion for the next week in our Telegram chat, and perhaps by next week we can come up finally with a mission statement, at least for the what. So let's move on to the next topic, which is the RFP. Chris.
Yes. And just on the mission, I'm with you, Aaron, on what you just closed out with, where general and broad and is better. Like, I think it's like, let's leave it more wide open for now. And then later on we can tweak it. Like, I think there's no rule that says it can't be revised in time.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that one. Okay. So RFP, let me find my post in our chat. Shit, I don't think I linked it. Here it is, Google Draft. I will share screen. So yeah, request for proposals on our Eden on EOS website. This is an attempt to provide an opportunity to the Eden community to submit their intention to want to take on the designing, building, and maintaining of the Eden on EOS website. So I can't move my screen anymore. Can you guys see my screen?
I cannot. I was just about to interrupt you and ask.
Oh,
it says you've started.
Something.
Did I break it?
Is it working now?
Yeah,
there it goes.
Yeah, weird. It was like it froze. Okay, good. So yeah, that's the intention. Currently, Ray's doing it, EdenOS.org. And really the question I have from you guys, like, does this look okay? Am I covering in terms of like submission requirements? This is really where I probably need the most thought from you guys who actually have made websites more so than myself. Lovejoy suggested we prefer this to be like a Jamstack site. Jesse's he left. He's back now. Welcome back, Jesse. Oh, still connecting to audio. There you go. Did you get kicked out, Jesse?
Yeah.
I wonder if Aaron got kicked out too. Yeah, there might have been some weird glitch in the matrix on.
Oh, okay.
Here. Okay. Yeah. Weird. Anyway, yeah. So Jamstack was the suggestion. I'm super easy to change anything here, by the way. So whatever you guys like, don't like, I can tweak, add. If it's sufficient for now, I mean, at least getting some intention from Eden members, and then we can start a dialogue with however many step up and say, hey, we could do it. I could do it. Then we can just go from there and pick. John, I know you're one of the contenders, so to speak, right? You've already kind of got one. Ray may want to submit his hat to keep doing what he's doing as well. So we just want to make it open and fair for everyone to have a chance.
Yeah, I read through it and I thought it sounded really good. I had actually never heard the term Jamstack before. So that was new to me. And I thought that was a cool way to present that. I mean, it's a way that I've personally been doing things for years, but the only thing I was wondering is does the Eden member name need to be required? Because we had talked about initially accepting Eden member proposals, but then maybe in the future expanding out of that. And I don't know if we want to account for that yet. Maybe there's a new form in the future if we can't find what we're looking for here, but that was like the only minute little bit of feedback I had.
I'd say start within the community, and then
Sure.
if we don't find who we're looking for inside the community, then consider widening.
It made sense. Yeah, it made sense to me. Start with this, and then, well, we already have one very solid proposal.
Yeah.
And so I think at this time, it's appropriate to require that personally.
Cool.
Is there anything I should be asking for that I'm not, in terms of, I guess, these ones right here? Summary, amount requested time, and then examples. Is there a couple more things I should be asking for, or is this, do you think, good enough?
Do we need to be a bit more explicit in what we're asking for? Does it just say we're after a website on Jamstack? Is that it?
Looking for an Eden member to be handed the responsibility of designing, building, and maintaining the EdenOS website. Chief delegates prefer this to be Jamstack. Additionally, the current Eden Chief delegates plan to be very supportive in terms of providing guidance for the site and the copy to be included. So yeah, like we will help with the verbiage, but
John,
they'll do it. Yeah.
Sounds pretty explicit to me.
Yeah, I think the content or the copy on the website is going to be one of the challenges. Even for us, like I think we have rough ideas, but we'll probably really need to do some brainstorming on like what the purpose is. And I think a lot of that maybe even comes from the mission kind of discussion we were having earlier. So if we are committing to that, we'll just have to make sure we're on top of that, because if you go look at the Gray Mass website, it's a great example of this, where like we didn't know how to present ourselves, but we could design it and we could build it. So like the message of the page is just not as clear as it should be. So if maybe, yeah, we can try to come up with the copy for it. I think maybe, but it's going to just take some effort. That's point being, I'm just concerned about copy. I'm not good at copy.
Well, that's another area where we can hire people from the community.
Yeah.
And then just be like, you know, if it's built on a like Git repository, then people can submit pull requests too, and we can just say that's a great change, that's a shit change, like, you know, like just go through them, and someone can have that role of kind of cultivating what shows up on the website.
Yeah.
How do we plan on conversing with this person?
Conversing with who?
Email address for now is what I've got, and we
Oh.
get their member name, so we should be able to find them in
But,
Telegram.
like,
I could ask for
during
Telegram name.
During development, are we going to just have like a Telegram group, and if they ask feedback, we just go in there? If there's
Could work.
design decisions that need to be made, how does that work?
Telegram group sounds good.
Yep.
Hopefully we have like an initial call, lay out some expectations, and make sure we're all on the same page, and they take it away. They do some building. We look at it back and forth, take it away, and then maybe a couple iterations, it's done. I mean, because we're not building, this isn't this is just informational for now anyway, right? Like we don't need, like, this isn't a complicated website per se, as far as websites go. I don't think it can be
Yes.
complicated, but for now it doesn't need to be.
It's a brochure website.
I have a question. Is anyone planning on doing something like this for the video editor that we need?
Yeah, I think we need to do all the.
But that's like the most pressing. The website and a video editor. Would you agree with that?
What's the video editor for?
To edit the video
Just-
that we're making right now.
These videos.
Yeah, just handle all the day-to-day content that's getting.
For now, I can keep doing it. It really isn't. It's just I have to just take the. It's not that hard. I'm not really
No, we need clips.
editing this. Oh, that part.
Clips would
Oh,
be
fuck.
helpful.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of stuff that somebody in that role could provide, and
Because I could share it with with my bees for the video editor. I could probably find someone. If we make something like this that we're looking at for video editor, I could probably fill that role.
Well,
I
we
think we
we
want
can,
to let people do
Yeah.
proposals for it
same thing.
as opposed to just picking.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I'm sorry, that's what I
bees,
meant.
the bees could definitely
meant-
submit. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we're cool with this, let's get it out, give it a week, see if we get engagement. And if it looks like it works, then we'll just make another one. This isn't taking very long to do. So we can just make another RFP type of thing, and we'll do one for video editor. And for that, we actually might be able to settle on like a rate or something. Like, how do we want to that's the other challenge here, is compensation. I think even for this website, hopefully there's some lump sum funding coming in a little while soon that can help facilitate. So we don't have to decide right now, which is why I've left it kind of open. And there's like an expectation reimbursement requested for work. So we'll leave it open-ended for now. But maybe
For the video editor,
we can be more
we have
precise.
a rate per minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
at
that's
this
pretty standardized rates. I can do some research on that.
Okay. I want us to hopefully keep identifying things like this that could help us. I mean, I know we're all busy with other things as well. I know I am. And we have access to capital right now through Eden that we should be deploying to improve this process. So I'm like, I still have not touched my budget, and I would be happy to touch it for something like this.
Yeah.
And videos and whatever
I'm
else
gonna
we come
have-
up with.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the same thing for my commitment, in fact, of doing this transparency thing. I'm not sure how I'm gonna approach it yet. I won't be able to do it, not to the level I wanted to when I was making the promise, so to speak. So I may do an RFP also just to get people to help, or just reach out privately, but I'm gonna end up using my funding to pay someone else to fulfill that commitment. So sound similar to you, Aaron, in that way, right?
Yeah.
Can I put this to work? So I'm
Delegate.
Yeah,
Cool.
maybe
Yeah.
there's an RFP for that as well. It's like, who wants to
yeah.
go through this? And you had a vision of how it could be done.
Mhm.
And I think if you kind of laid that vision out a little bit, enough for somebody to be able to be like, I can do that,
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
we could find a suitable candidate.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right.
I'll take that as a way to do for next week. I'll aim to get that going for next week at a minimum. So if we're satisfied with this, I'll post it to the Eden members group this evening. Could be during this call, and then we'll do something else next week, and maybe just do a series of RFPs. And as we see roles and identify amounts, then we can just kind of keep this coming.
Yeah. I'll toss out another random idea, but what about like an audio person that could convert this into a podcast? Maybe more people would listen if they could listen on their commute or something, and it wasn't a video.
Mhm.
Then again, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
people listen to YouTube videos and don't watch them.
That's
hard.
Aaron. I believe that's in the video editor would do that.
All right. I mean, if somebody can do both, convert it, like do the clips, do the full thing, because we obviously still want the full
Yeah.
unedited thing, but then also do an audio only version and make sure it's on places where you can get podcasts.
Yeah.
you
Video
know?
editor can do that.
All right.
We just call it a
The right one.
media
Media.
something.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
All
all
right.
about identifying these things.
Mhm.
So I'd like
Yeah.
to move on to our next topic, which is, Lovejoy. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So Haifa, I think this is like a two-part topic. The first part is discussing the value of using Haifa for Eden on EOS. And then depending on how that discussion goes, I have a proposal for the group. So I'd first like to start this off. Out of everyone on the call here, who is familiar with Haifa? And like, not just familiar, have you looked into what it is and what they can provide?
I have.
Negative.
Yeah, I'm pretty
John,
familiar.
Aaron?
I'm not familiar.
I'm not familiar either.
Okay.
You
So
wanna share your screen and show us?
yeah. Can I share my screen? Yes, I can. I think probably the Pomelo grant is the best place.
How'd they do? I
So-
didn't see the finished amount.
Haifa enables DAOs. That's like the short. I think you guys probably already know that. And they've been building on Telos for 3 years. And I know Chris had a conversation with him that was recorded. I had a conversation with him, him being Reiki Cordon, that was recorded. And I see a lot of value that this can bring in in organizing and coordinating. And so just as we just talked about, in terms with our RFP, we're looking to fill roles. We're looking to pay people for roles. We are not organized right now. We're using Google Docs, and we're reaching out on Telegram and Discord and Twitter. And it's not explicit, it's not organized, it's not coordinated. So Haifa brings it all on one platform and makes everything explicit, organized, coordinated. So let's see, here's their main quote. Haifa builds decentralized tools that help the world to work 100% for humanity in the shortest time possible through spontaneous cooperation, ecological regeneration, and equal advantage for all. This ecological regeneration, I believe the first implementation of the Haifa software is a DAO called Seeds, where they plant trees. So I think that kind of got its way into the Haifa mission statement. So it's built on EOS.io, of course. And so here are some of the features. So roles and quests are baked into the system. They have batch payments, which are cool. Badges, NFTs. You can have different tokens on there. And MSIG, let's keep going down. This is their new UI. You see like all this stuff on the left-hand side. It's like, they call it the multi-tenant DAO platform. So it's kind of like Discord when you have like different Discord channels on the side here. So it allows different DAOs to coordinate with each other. So anyone can propose a proposal. Like as chief delegates, we would propose our proposal for a website. We create a role for that person, and then we attach funding for that role. And it's segmented in terms of like milestone. There's a lot of granularity. I think that if I'm breaking up, I just got that warning.
Yeah, you're breaking up. Maybe kill your video.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So we already have Eden on EOS. And we have a way that we elect our leaders. But like for us chief delegates, we have decided through ourselves that we make decisions on a 2/3+1 consensus. And I know we can make that explicit in a standard multi-sig, for example, but this could basically put all the multi-sigs on one platform. Like if the level 1 delegates wanted to do stuff, it's all visible on one platform. So it's really, again, about organizing and coordinating. And here's like some of the examples of like you can toggle for different decision-making parameters. Here's his interview with Chris. So anyways, I guess that's it for this. And so I think that putting our organization, our Eden on EOS, built on Haifa, again, could help us organize and coordinate. Aaron made a statement about we don't want another bureaucracy on a bureaucracy. And I don't see that this way. We're not using any additional rules. We're making our rules more visible, explicit, and coordinated. And I guess I'll stop at that.
So my question is, typically these things like HyperDAO, EOS DAC or whatever, they do come with a governance layer. So is there a way that we can use HyperDAO and delete the governance part?
Yes.
Yeah,
it could solve different purposes. So like governance, for example, just means like we're going to have these roles, website developer, chief delegates are going to decide who gets that role. That's kind of governance, and that could be baked in to
Yeah, but
the hypha part.
typically these things, they have, they put people in elected positions, and we already got that part done for us. So we already have a DAO. So if we are to use half a DAO, we only want the luxuries that the software brings. We don't actually want to be a hyper DAO. We want to be, we already got a DAO.
The thing is, hypha DAO doesn't have an opinion about governance. It doesn't have,
Right.
it allows any form of governance. They have like sliders. You can be like, we want 100% consensus and 100% quorum on every decision, or we want, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can just set hypha DAO to do 2/3 + 1. I'm not really exactly sure, but the point is we can just use Fractal. We can use EdenOS, EdenOS as our governance engine and still use hypha DAO. There's no.
Yeah.
So-
Analogy is like it's like we're using spreadsheets right now to organize. And this is an actual platform that we can go on to better organize and coordinate.
I think my biggest concern is that it's not going to integrate into anything that we have unless we, I don't know, pay them to integrate it. Like right now, when we're talking about doing the website with Eden funding, the reason that that's going to be really easy is because we can do inter-Eden member transfers. Like that's part of our system. It's a little manual. There's no interface for it right now, but it's possible. If we did this and used this system, it wouldn't be compatible with that. We'd have to pull money out of Eden, and if there are tariffs or whatever, that's going to be applied as then we move that funding into hypha to manage those roles and those payments and those kinds of things. So that's kind of a concern. And then there's also, on the other hand, how much of this is going to be a part of Eden at some point? I really don't know. I think maybe asking the Clarion team, like which of these pieces are eventually going to exist within our system would be great. Just so that way we don't, like if we start using this thing, their platform, which looks really nice, or is it eventually going to be abandoned because we're going to have something internal, or are those two teams going to work together to integrate these two systems so that way they play nicely together?
They should.
Yeah, there's some external factors that I think are outside of our control that we have to consider before committing to it.
I have a question.
Definitely see the benefit though.
Why is there an assumption that it cannot integrate with the Eden smart contracts?
Because we don't control the Eden smart contracts. So that's just an unknown for us.
Okay, so you're saying that we would need coordination with the Clarion team.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, like the hypha interface very well might be able to just say, oh, this is how we do fund distribution. And then they can call the Eden contract.
Right.
But those two development teams are going to need to be talking to each other to make sure that one doesn't break the other one. Because we don't want to end up in a situation where our stuff just breaks. That's why we're kind of doing it manually in the spreadsheets and stuff right now, is because no matter what changes in Eden, our manual processes won't break.
If we could get the time and attention of the Clarion team to merge these two things together, I can't imagine a better hybrid of two platforms. I just can't. Like they've solved many of the organizational needs that we have not yet dealt with.
And I love the Clarion team, but organization I don't see as one of their strong points. And these guys are experts at coordination and organization. And so I totally agree with Lovejoy that it's kind of like the dream team of software. I think they solve for different issues.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely something worth bringing up on our next call with them.
In terms of governance and not breaking any, in terms of like all the game theoretical aspects that you don't want to like run afoul of when creating a system and building a community, I'm fully behind the Clarion OS team and Dan's leadership. But I think in terms of just a quick, I mean, I don't know how quick really, but I mean, it's already built. And HiFiDAO, I just think the way that they've done roles and managed like the internal operations is so smart, and it's something we just completely don't even have at all.
Yeah, it's
And
extraordinary.
they're a complete open source team, and EdenOS is open source, so it's like, yo, you two should get together and make a baby because it would be really good looking.
I would like to get the permission to invite Reiki onto one of our calls, maybe just in the beginning, when, like, if and when, or maybe I should ask this after we speak to Clarion, but I would love you guys to meet him, and I think you'll see that they are an extremely talented team.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And I think out of the concerns I brought up and have heard, it sounds more just like there are technical challenges potentially in the way to make it a good experience for us as Eden members. It's right now we'd have to move money out of one system and put it into the other, essentially. And that comes with its own set of problems, like we've been experiencing just with our manual processes. Those would all still be the same. So, but getting those teams to work together to be able to do something would be awesome, and maybe worth funding from somewhere. I don't know if that's something we're even capable of. I have no idea what the scope of that is, because it's two teams we're talking about that are building things. But maybe that's something we can have funding or encourage funding to be directed towards, because it would be a great benefit to us and any other Eden community that launches. Like we're the guinea pigs, and if we want a nicer wheel to run around in, we just gotta make it known.
Yeah, and if we care about the level 1 delegates, we had a call with them. I
If
believe,
we
Aaron, you
care.
were on that call.
What are you
The
saying, Jesse?
consensus is
Right?
what?
He said, if we care. Like it's
Oh,
a
we
question.
do.
Of course we care.
Because we care.
Because we
About-
care.
We're not that elitist yet, Chief Delegates, are we?
Sorry, sorry.
Just teasing.
There was overwhelming consensus to engage with HIFA. So
Yeah.
I think that,
So my take on this one, I love it. First of all, absolutely love it. So HIFA is coming to EOS no matter what. And so it's going to happen, and then maybe, and it's going to take time because they still have to do that. So maybe once they get it over to EOS and it's there, then that's like a future, it might take the next Eden election, or we end up with more money in our budgets. And then we can it's like a separate thing that we then try to integrate. And once it's here, we can also have a better chance to look at it and play with it. And what parts do we really want within Eden? And so it's like exploratory at this stage. I think we all agree in the concept that, like what you're saying, Lovejoy, HIFA solves a lot of the problems that we are unable to solve. And so we just have to find a balance. So as a conclusion to this meeting, I'm certainly supportive of the general idea of talking to them, working with them. And like I say, it's coming to EOS no matter what. So, and that won't cost us any money.
I think, in addition, like the other action that we can take is just as chief delegates, if we want, we can speak with a unified voice that we encourage the integration of HiFiDAO into the EdenOS platform.
Yeah.
And whether or not we have the power to make that happen or not is kind of secondary to our insistence that it's a good idea,
I think the only thing that would, sorry, what was that, John?
I would say it just depends at what costs, because Clarion are doing a bunch of cool stuff. So if Clarion are working on this and they're not working on something else, like the court system or something like that as well. There is a trade-off no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that would discourage me from supporting this would be that the Clarion team comes back and says, no, we're actually building this into Eden. And I don't know if that's true or how feasible it is or on what timeline, but if there's room for collaboration, that's the way we need to hopefully go to I mean, competition's always good as well, but that would put a wrench into integration possibilities potentially. So just as a potential flag to put up.
Yeah, so we'll talk to Clarion and we'll go from there. So the next topic is a legal update. We talked about legal trust to store assets. Do we have any update on that?
No. And just that it's a good idea and we should do it, but we don't even have like all our assets totally secured as they exist currently.
Why do we need a trust again?
To ensure continuity of assets between, bus accidents and other various unfortunate
Who's going to
events.
hold the assets?
The trust.
No, I know. That's what I'm telling John. That's when you need to think.
Oh.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a legal trust. We could just have an unofficial trust.
No, it kind of needs to be a legal trust because say like
John,
who's going to talk to Google?
Remember?
What?
Sorry. Never mind.
Do you think trust talk to Google?
Well, they would have the legal authority to be like, I represent this trust and we need this access to this account and we have legal authority to do that. Whereas a bunch of dudes on a blockchain that have a smart contract will not have the same legal standing to make that request of Google.
But even if they're a legal trust, like there's still going to be someone behind that trust. Is it the trustee to handle that? Yeah. So why don't we just do an unofficial one where it's not legal? It's just a guy that knows the username and password. And
because if he dies, John.
Yeah, I don't think you're.
Well, what's the difference with a legal trust? He can still die.
No. The trust has rules of succession. So if somebody dies, then it passes on to the next person who's legally named in the trust.
So is the plan that we write a letter to Google and ask for account recovery?
Yep, that's it. That's the plan. I'm okay with it. I think that sounds good to me.
Is that been done before? Is that a thing?
Well, legal trusts, yeah, I mean, they're a thing. They handle this sort of thing. They handle assets.
This was recommended by
Dan did to suggest it. Yeah, maybe we'll check with Dan and John. You could figure out, because I think it sounded compelling to all of us. We were all in agreement that this was the right way to go at the time, as opposed to doing some other legal entity. The trust was sort of the least invasive form of asset ownership. Wasn't that right? Am I misrepresenting that?
No, you're
That's
not.
right.
Yeah.
So that was the whole point, John.
And it's private too.
In a legal sense, but again, it's the question is whether we bother doing it the legal way, or again, we just do it, the easy way, which is just to have someone stake a certain amount of EOS for the privilege of holding the account.
You're missing a crucial piece here, which is that you need a legal entity that can approach a legal entity and say, hi, I'm legal entity A, you're legal entity B. Let's do a deal. If you don't have a legal entity, you can't just approach Google and be like, yo, I'm this guy who's got a bunch of people who say that I'm the guy. And
I stake some EOS.
And I stake some EOS. Hand me over the credentials to this account.
But no,
they died. I swear they did. Trust me.
In this case, you already know the account, and there'll just be two people that don't get on the same plane together, essentially.
No.
All we're trying to do is just achieve someone holding a username and password at the end of the day, aren't we?
No, the goal is so that way if that username and password is lost for whatever reason, that this entity could approach someone like GoDaddy or Namecheap or Google or any of these huge corporations that do domain registration and have the legal authority to take control of that and then make sure it gets into the right hands.
Yeah. Okay.
If an unofficial situation cannot accomplish this, they're just going to ignore your emails and then the domain's lost forever.
But if we entertain a short-term solution for the long-term, because at the moment with no short-term solution, we're just waiting on the long-term, and it seems to be taking a while, and it's sort of throttling any sort of development around. Is there?
Well, there's no
Alright.
rush. We don't have a website right now. I mean, we have a website and it's
Oh.
running, but there's
Right now we're in the situation that you're describing, John.
Yeah,
but
and so as moderator, I would like to say that we have 2/3 plus one consensus, I believe, on this issue. So we're gonna move on because I do believe Randall is for the legal trust.
so you think we do. All right.
I'm 99% sure that we do. So let's go to individual updates.
Madness.
Lovejoy?
Slipping into madness, and other than that, I've been, having a lot of conversations, mostly trying to figure out how we can just start getting some shit done. I think the other component we actually didn't touch on yet, besides the trust, is the issue of a legal joint entity, and that's an area where Aaron and I were talking the other night, and I was like, Aaron, maybe you could just get he suggested maybe he had somebody that could just help do the research and set up such a joint entity. That would allow us to legally, throw money in a bucket and distribute it to pay contracts, if we so decided that was desirable. So the joint venture seems to me like the most flexible option, and it can be its own legal entity. So you can set up a joint venture LLC, and then all of us as individuals or as companies can engage with that joint venture, but we are not that joint venture. And we can contribute or not contribute whatever we want to it. So it's voluntary, and, then we can use that legal vehicle to direct resources however we want and have a paper trail and have contractors. And then if we're tired of it and think it's stupid, we can just dissolve it. And it's just like a throwaway thing. It can have a built-in end date, but I'm not a lawyer, and we just need somebody, if we think this is a good idea, if we want to have a legal entity that can manage funds on all of our behalves, but not speak for all of Eden, but help the chief delegates manage funds collectively, then something like a joint venture is probably the best idea. And then Aaron's currently got the most resources to kind of make it happen. So I would move that Aaron just find somebody that can do the research and pay them to advise us whether or not it is as wise as we might hope.
Yeah, and I think the murkiness, we're identifying roles that we need help with. And I personally think it's really weird that if I were to do that right now, Graymass would be the one that's hiring someone, just because personally, I don't want to take on the liability of having somebody as a contractor to me.
Yep.
That is not why I ran in Eden to be elected. If I would have put enough foresight into the election process and thinking about this, I may not have run if that was a condition on me running.
Mhm.
It's a burden, and I think that I wouldn't be alone in feeling that this is a reason to not participate. We don't need reasons for people to not participate right now, as they're learning from our experiences.
Yeah.
So for me, as the sortition magic winner, I do have the larger budget, and I would like to deploy it. I think that there are things that we can do. Right now, we found a way to do it within Eden. That's great. But we do have a limited community, and I do think that there are services out there that we could take advantage of, but they're not going to engage. They're not an Eden member, so we can't do transfers within the system. And we need some way to sign a contract with them and work with them. If I approach the people I know for both legal and accounting advice on something like legal structure, that's going to be a contract with me. It's not going to be a contract with this entity. It's all going to be the responsibility is placed on me as an individual, even though it is a joint venture. So it makes sense for something to exist to take on that obligation. I still don't agree with what Dan said about how we could create a temporary one for us as a temporary individual, because look how long it's been now and we still don't have something. That's going to be true of every group unless there's continuity. Like each group is going to come in and do this.
The beauty of a joint venture is that we could all leave and the future chief delegates could join that same joint venture. Like, I think there can be a rotating cast of characters in a joint venture. Like Corporation A shows up and says, I have this to contribute. Corporation B is like, I want to throw this in the pot. And then they're like, it's not good for me anymore. I'm leaving. It's not an issue. But the joint venture remains. So I think we can actually create a kind of a quasi-disposable entity that can outlive us, outlive our tenure, and just be available. And we could just call it Chief Delegate Joint Venture LLC, and then when we're done, we leave and other people step into the role. And if it doesn't suit their needs, then it can just be dissolved. But that's the best I've come up with in terms of a solution. But we really need a lawyer to look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense, or nah, you're asking for trouble. But because I can't really answer that question, and so somebody that now, if you want, I could just create an LLC for myself and then use my LLC to hire a lawyer to do the joint venture with my, whatever delegate money comes in next, and take that, the legal liability of doing that. But if anyone else already has an easier solution to that. Actually, I have an LLC I've never used for anything, and it just got formed this year, and I wasn't going to use it, and it's not in this state that I'm in now. So I could just use that for that one reason and then kill my LLC.
Yeah.
But we want a company to be a vehicle for executing transactions in the real world. Is that the idea?
Essentially.
So why does it have to be a shared one? Why can't it be someone like a single chief delegates, like Brandon's, LLC, to do that?
Continuity. So that way we don't wait. The next chief delegates don't spend 2 months trying to figure out how best to do this and waste all this time and sit on their money. And
well, there's learning the path and then just going down the same path, later. Like, we can write some pretty good documentation on how we, did it with the
True.
LLC.
And then they're going to spend thousands of dollars to set up the LLC and make sure everything's good. And it's wasted time and effort if there's no continuity.
Well, yeah, but again, when there's a continuity, then doesn't that dilute Dan's idea of being a country, other than we're operating within the country, aren't we?
Not if it's just a rotating cast of characters. That I don't think. If it was intending to speak on behalf of all of Eden and represent Eden, then I think that would be a problem. But if it's just a vehicle for allocating resources that come into the hands of 6 individuals on a rotating basis, then I don't see the issue. But we can also dissolve. I mean, if it makes more sense to dissolve it and reform it every single time, then that's fine too. If that has to be that way in order to avoid the issue, then we just bake the amount of money needed to do that into the chief delegate handover process, and it's like we have a ceremony where we destroy our joint venture, and then it gets reformed again, and
keep burning.
Yeah, we got to get some lawyers in the Eden membership that can do this for us, so that we're just paying Eden members to do it instead of rando tax lawyer, lawyer people.
What transaction have we faced that we haven't been able to execute because we don't have a company?
We're not doing any transactions other than like I used it wasn't really my money technique to send you guys the funds to work on your projects, but you claim those as your legal entity, and theoretically I'm off the hook for that as income. But if I wanted to take money and put it into like a legal vehicle of my own and like share it. Like basically we don't want to be a partnership, so we have to be something else. And otherwise we just can't pool resources, really. It's a pooling resources and continuity issue, but
And the deployment of them. I mean, imagine our budgets were 100 times what they are today.
that's the other thing. Is,
Like, I don't think individually we could justify taking all of that money, and instead we would have to be deploying it to things that we think are good. And like, there are certain people that are going to take the money and they don't care. They don't care about the paper trail. They just want the money. They'll do the thing. That's great. But there's also a lot of talent out there that's going to want a contract that creates the legal paper trail because they still work in the non-crypto world. And that kind of gets back to the idea of an exchange account. Like if I start selling tokens to get fiat to pay somebody in the traditional world with normal money, those are capital gains on my end. Those are trades on my end. That's something that accounts towards my tax and accounting situation. If there was an entity, it would exist on that side, and it wouldn't be a personal burden to the members who participate in this. Like we still have to play within the rules of the existing systems based on wherever we live. And an entity in a business is going to be one of the easiest ways to be able to do that. So I don't know. I'm just thinking about the future, and maybe I'm thinking about this much harder because my budget was randomly bigger. And because the duration of this candidacy is twice as long as what I expected when I ran. Like I was like, oh, we got a 3-month stint. I got this great project. Even if I don't get sortition, like the 3,000 EOS will be enough to finish this job. What?
It's like his friend is misses.
Your mic's a little low again, John. You got the gain there.
I'm back.
Whoa. So yeah, I don't remember what I was rambling about now. The random sound effects and conversation.
I personally, the way Lovejoy was describing the joint venture sounds attractive to me. I do agree that we need to speak to a lawyer. And if someone like Lovejoy can hire a lawyer through their LLC, perhaps that makes the most sense to me as well. And yeah, let's go down that road, I say. So we can move on to individual updates if we're ready to do that.
I mean, do we have some nominal sort of form of consensus that?
Well, we gotta wait for Randall for that.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, let's revisit this. But I'll do some exploratory stuff. And Aaron, if you have any capacity to help me,
I might send an email, see what I can find.
Got to get a lawyer on the payroll.
Yeah.
You take
I
EOS.
will send an email to the individual who doesn't want me to make a mess out of my own personal situation.
Yeah, right.
What the advice there is. So,
John, would you like to update us on Violet Garden?
Yeah, I've deployed the first couple NFTs on Atomic. That's looking good. Just in the middle of adding co-signing server side, so I can get those transactions going for free, and then adding free transactions across the whole app there. Experiencing a bug with Anchor. Don't know who was developing it, but they should fix it so it doesn't say that Anchor is paying for the transactions when I'm really paying for the transactions. But yeah, working on that.
Awesome. I'll go next. We are working on our newsletters. So for the month of November, each of the 6 active hives will be creating a newsletter, which they translate into English. We'll be sharing with the EOS community shortly. So we're just making sure the English is at least decently well written. And we did an AMA on Tuesday. That's on the EOS Nation YouTube channel. Some of the Princess Bees went through their newsletter, and they personally walked through what they did. So that was cool. We have some unfortunate things happening in the Spanish Hive, and so we are working through that. I'm not sure that it's public yet, but that will be updated shortly. We're continuing to work on EOSBs 2.0. There's an interview with Nova Crypto that I did. It's coming out on December 9. There's a lot more details on outlining the problems that we're seeing with the system so far and the proposed solution to those problems. Part of it is partnering with Haifa and Tippet. Their services will help us accomplish our vision for our next iteration of our organizational and incentive structure. And hopefully by January 1, we can at least get our spreadsheet version start moving towards this new incentive structure, which will be announced shortly. And so that is my update. Chris, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Let's see. RFP was made. Talk about that one. I'm going to start actively working on getting this transparency thing stood up. So like Aaron suggested, I do have a vision. I know what it looks like. So I'm going to maybe do a mural board of that because I love mural boards. It's like my new favorite thing to do. And yeah, so I'll do that. I'll get that going. So yeah, not really an update, just an intention. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been doing other shit, unfortunately. Well, I guess it's good, but it was unanticipated when I became an Eden Chief Delegate. And so such is life. But we'll commit to, I'm also, the fact that my EOS is just sitting in my account untouched is kind of starting to bother me because it's not being deployed and it should be. So I'm going to actively, the first month, I'm going to pay myself and make that transparent because I haven't done that yet, or even taken the funds to pay myself. But yeah, I'm going to make an asserted push here to try to actually get these funds doing something. So more to come, but not much for now.
Awesome. Aaron.
Yeah. Just to comment on you, Chris, whatever the board thing you were talking about, I'd be interested to see how that process works. Always interested in different ways to organize ideas.
It is so cool, dude. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
like a whiteboard online. Oh, it's
Aaron,
changed my world. I'll send you a link. I'll talk you through something you can actually seeing anyway.
Yeah,
awesome.
The EOS community, I don't know if maybe Chris and I are thinking of the same thing, but we have an epic Miro board for like marketing in the EOS community. I can show you if you want.
It's probably the same. It's Miro, M-I-R-O.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, it's cool.
Miro is pretty epic, pretty easy to use.
Cool. Anyways, I saw, I believe yesterday was one of the first pull requests to Unicove, which is what we're using to test this Anchor integration or this account creation system that I ran on. And it is going to be using libraries that are external to it. They're all open source. Well, they're not yet, but they will be. We just don't want anybody using them until they're in a stable position because it does accept payment. So, but I did see the first pull request come in. I haven't reviewed it yet, but it seems like we're at a point where it's almost functional and we're going to be able to show how other apps are able to do account creation themselves using our platform. So that way onboarding everywhere should be that much easier. We've given away some more account codes to various people. We've been asked for ways for people to be able to pay for them, but that's just currently not on our roadmap. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, both the duration and the amount that we're pitching to run on is much greater than it actually we anticipated, I guess. So sort of like Chris, it's a matter of, we are tied up in other things on our end. It's a lot of the working group stuff. The working groups are like, I have an engineer that's working pretty much at least half of his time on the account creation side of things to make sure we fulfill that promise and we deliver what we're aiming to aim for. But all of our other resources right now are going into research to be able to create these papers and really help push the ecosystem forward. So I think once we have kind of a prototype of the account creation system ready, we'll probably announce it. It'll probably be, I don't know, probably next year at this point, just because I know there's stuff going on. December's never a good time to actually get a lot of like deep hours into projects. So sometime very early next year, we'll have the SDKs available for other people to start integrating. Maybe I'll like ping John or something and see if he wants to be an early beta tester for it. Maybe do a little bit of that in the meantime, but just not open the floodgates quite yet, because I would rather have a strategic approach to its release than just saying, hey, everybody, here's the thing, and oh, it doesn't work. So, but there's good progress being made. I'm pretty happy with the direction it's heading. It's been a team effort in coming up with how, and then just one of our guys really hitting it home and making sure it's built right.
Awesome. Thank you for the update. Lovejoy, is there anything else you want to say as an update, or you're muted?
Sorry, muted. Yeah, I got kind of sidetracked there, but do I really have much of an update this week? Not really, since no, not a whole lot to add, to be honest. Just pretty distracted. My goal is to get back and to make sure we deploy some of these resources into the community. And to that end, some sort of Eden Public Works type thing. I don't know if RFPs are always going to be part of this, or if we just need to get things moving fast, but I like the RFP process. And I think if we can just grab a hold of, like start jamming out these RFPs and help use the community to identify what needs to get done internally, and just start getting those out there and putting people to work. I think that's pretty much where I'm going to focus now. Other than that, I guess the only other update is that I haven't made since whenever we met last is that I transferred the 400 EOS to the 3 projects, and the remainder still sits in my account. So yeah,
super grateful for that. Thank you, Lovejoy.
Yeah, I mean, like Aaron and Chris, I just don't want to be like just sitting on it and have it do nothing. So yeah, I just hope everyone is a little patient with us, just because we are space monkeying our way through kind of clumsily, trying to figure out how to deploy this funding besides just funding the individual projects that we, some of us ran on. And it's been a lot of weird edge case. I don't know if edge case is the right word. Just a lot of weird stuff that I hadn't really contemplated before running, that we were gonna like get into. And yeah, hopefully we can leave the next round of delegates with an easier plate, and we'll just be the clumsy, awkward ducklings in the room, and that'll be okay.
Yeah, we were kind of like, we were all elected, and then it's like, go. Okay. There was nothing else. I mean, it would have been really easy if we all just decided to take whatever money we were allocated and run with it. But there are other things that we can do for the community. Yeah. Like, I mean, the budget that I got randomly, you know, if it wasn't me randomly, I would have gotten the roughly 6,000 EOS or whatever to run with. And like, I probably could make a strong case that like I could allocate that really well within gray mass. That's cool. But now that it's what, 30,000 EOS or something over the course of 6 months, like that's a substantial budget. And I would be very happy if the community was like, yeah, take it all for gray mass. But that just doesn't, that's not what I ran on. I didn't run on like, oh, just give gray mass a bunch of money. It was, oh, here's our specific thing. And maybe there are better ways to allocate it than just that. If it boils down to it, maybe that is a good allocation of money, but let's explore some other options first. I can always do that at the last minute and be like, look, we'll use this, we'll hire 2 developers, you'll get even better updates, we'll have better quality, better interfaces and whatever, but it's not what I ran on. So we got to work through all this weirdness in the meantime, but it's really frustrating that we're at about the halftime now. You know, at the end of the year, that's kind of the halfway mark of our candidacy. And it's frustrating to not have deployed anything necessarily. Like we're building in the back end and we'll pay ourselves for that, obviously, but we just got to figure out how to do more.
Yeah. And I don't know. For me, I feel like in a slightly even more nebulous position just because I didn't run on a particular project necessarily. And yet we don't have the organizational sort of infrastructure needed to be like, all right, Lovejoy, like we want you to do this for Eden. We want you to do that for Eden. And instead it's like, you know, we're just making all this up. And nor is the budget that I am currently in charge of sufficient to both pay me for a full-time thing and have money left over for the things that it should fund. So it's kind of like an awkward middle ground kind of territory.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost feel like Eden should, I don't know. We'll figure out this like awkward stuff.
Yeah. It almost would have been easier if we had like, if the entire budget was under an MSIG and we all had to come to agreement on how to allocate it, then none of us would have had individual funding, which has its own downsides and kind of goes against the vision of how this system works. But we'd probably be executing on a lot more things right now because we get around all those, the hurdles that we have today. None of us would have been forced to take this income in and deal with the consequences of it. But uncharted waters. It's like with this much freedom and independence for all of us, we've we've figured out how we can't quite run.
Yeah, we got to get to proposing some suggested changes for the next go round, I think, on some of those regards, because that keeps coming up, the MSIG versus individual buckets, but I don't know if that aligns with Dan's sort of theoretical perspective. And
I don't know.
But even just having 2 separate pools would be great. Like trust the delegates with like this much money individually, like spend as you see fit, but then also put like another bunch of money in the MSIG so that delegates could work together and be like, okay, we have administrative overhead budget that we can deploy for this, that, and the other thing, that we just need to get this organizational stuff in flight that's not earmarked for any individual or any project in particular. But ugly duckling phase.
So let's move, perhaps we can move to our closing statements if there's not anything else that we want to mention.
Sure.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I felt like what we just had were kind of closing statements.
So Aaron and Lovejoy gave their closing statements. John, would you like to say anything before we go? Okay, Chris.
Absolutely. I'd like to take this moment to thank all the Yeah, no, nothing. Great call. I'm excited that we're making progress in the mission statement. That's good. Thank you, Aaron, for kind of pushing that along. It's awesome because it is something we want to get nailed out. I'm excited about talking more about Haifa. I think the trust is a good idea. Like we're making progress. It's a long process, obviously, as evidenced by the time it's taking us. But you know what? No one said it was going to be a race. And as long as we leave some sort of framework that's useful to the next set of chief delegates, this thing can scale. To me, as long as we can walk away with that, I'll feel good about what we've done. If we don't, if our term comes to an end and all we've done is just taken our funding and spent it on shit, and there's nothing for the next group, I think it's a huge lost opportunity, and it's gonna, I don't know, I'll feel really disappointed about that. So I'm glad that we're moving in this direction of actually doing something that's more substantial and meaningful. So good on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to maybe give some thank yous as my closing statement. We're recording this the day after Pomelo closed, and the EOS Nation team built an incredible platform and experience. It was just awesome interacting with Pomelo. I think there was a lot of like camaraderie that kind of sprouted from that experience, at least for me. And personally, for EOSBs, we got a ton of support. And I just want to thank the Pomelo and EOS community. That's going to help us make more language hives come online, help us move to our next iteration of our incentive structure. So it's so huge for us. And I'm so grateful that Pomelo was launched. Also for the EOS Network Foundation, funding Pomelo and representing the EOS community with the negotiations with Block 1 and Helios, they're really critical. They've really filled the role. They're updating the community. Like it's such a breath of fresh air. I really love what they're doing, and I'm very grateful that they're here. And yeah, so I think that does it for us. Thank you for watching if you've come this far, and we will see you next week.